I have a confession. I'm a huge fan of The Pitt. It has become something of a cultural phenomenon, and for good reason. It's a fantastic show with gripping writing, stellar directing, and this phenomenal cast. A good part of the fascination around the show comes from the medical mysteries that unfold over the course of each episode and the season. Another part is the show's unwillingness to baby the viewer. The medical jargon comes fast and furious, and is apparently, I'm relying on others for this, extremely accurate. It gives us, the viewer, sort of an inside baseball feel and makes you feel like part of the team, or at least that you're there in the ER with them. And that's part of why videos like those from Dr. Mike have become so popular, to help digest it all and to learn a little bit about emergency medicine. But a third reason The Pitt has been so well received is that it's also an extremely well-written story that features fully realized characters. It may be written for the small screen, but story is story, and there are a ton of lessons writers of all stripes can take from it. As I said, I'm a huge fan of the show, and hey, I also have this channel where I talk about writing, and I thought, why not take a closer look at the show and unpack some of the universal lessons we can take from it as novelists, screenwriters, short story writers, and so on. That's what I hope to do starting with this video, which is going to focus on episode 1 of the first season. My plan is to talk about things like plot, creating characters, filling out a cast, building drama, playing out mysteries, dropping the odd red herring, and plenty more. My hope is to help writers grow in the craft of writing by looking at this show in some detail. But even if you're not a writer, it may help you to enjoy a rewatch of the series by seeing some of the internal workings of story that makes this show so engrossing to watch. Before we dive in, I thought it might be good to share a few ground rules. First, since I'm trying to unpack writing, I will be referencing some things that happen in later episodes. In other words, there will be some spoilers, but I promise to stick to season 1. Second, as I said, I'm a huge fan. I've watched both seasons multiple times, so this is also going to be me geeking out about the show, my favorite characters, favorite moments, most devastating moments, and so on. I suppose I should also introduce myself. For those who don't know, I'm Bradley P. Beaulieu. I'm a full-time writer with more than a dozen novels, 30-plus short stories, and 2+ decades of writing under my belt. I've also been a writing instructor, an editor, and I've given hundreds of talks at writing workshops, conferences, and conventions. This channel, A Novel Approach, is dedicated to writing tips in general and how to use the writing tool Scrivener more effectively. I'll leave a link in the description if you're curious about that. It's an affiliate link, so it costs nothing extra to you if you do pick up Scrivener, but does help support the channel. Okay, let's dive into episode 1. So here we see Dr. Robbie heading into the PTMC, the Pittsburgh Trauma Medical Center, where everything takes place. And of course, if you're not aware, this is a 24-like show where each episode follows 1 hour of this emergency department medical team as they deal with all the patients that are coming in. So a single day, 1 single shift. It's interesting to note, too, this song is the bookend for the very end of the season. Final episode, they close with this song as well. It's always interesting to think about why they choose particular songs and the meaning for it for this season as a whole. One of my favorite things about this show, honestly, is that they show the people, they cut to the waiting room very often over the course of every episode. And you see people that are going into and will be seen during that episode. And so the girl in the center with her daughter is going to be seen. The guy on the left in the blue shirt, he's going to be seen as well. So you just kind of catch this as the episode moves along, and it gives you some hint, actually. They do use it for dramatic effect on occasion. This fellow, too, that Dr. Robbie is passing becomes extremely important to this first couple of episodes, and one doctor in particular. So here he's stopping by Dr. Montgomery Adamson, and we find out a little bit later in this episode, was the mentor of Dr. Robbie. Here, the writers are just connecting us to something that's very important. It's one of the very first things that we're shown as he gets into the hospital. He takes a moment to notice it, and this builds later on. We'll talk about this, but one of the things that we need to do as writers of any type of fiction is to introduce characters, introduce the story early on and the elements that will become important later on. And so we're trying to characterize Dr. Robbie, especially since he's such an important part of the show, early on. And this is one of the ways that we do it. We're tying to a tiny bit of his backstory, and it happens to drive a lot of what goes on in this season and his emotional arc. That look, he's stressed out already, and he's like almost girding himself to go into this ED, this emergency department.
Is it true? Simi told Hector that Dr. Durangian said the hospital was up for sale.
They might turn in.
So the very first dialogue that we get, Dr. Robbie hasn't even talked yet until this point. He's about to. So here we're introducing the notion of friction between the ED and the administration that will play out. We don't know how, but it's important we get the sense because it was mentioned first.
Oh, they're always threatening to shut us down, but they never do.
Ano, niniwala ka sa kanya?
Hindi ako nagtitiwala sa mga doktor.
I love Pearl and Princess.
Gloria is looking for you.
No guts, no Gloria.
So Gloria is the hospital administrator who is going to be representing sort of that bureaucracy of the hospital and, bring that notion of friction to him. Yeah, and all the things that emergency departments have to go to in terms of patient satisfaction, handling insurance, and on and on.
Good time for my weekly spanking.
It'd be nice for all our sakes. You sure you're cool being here today?
Yeah, why wouldn't I be?
So Dana, the charge nurse in charge of all the nurses in the emergency department, asks Dr. Robbie if he's okay to be in today. And we just saw him stop by Adamson's picture. Now, on first viewing, you don't know who he is. You don't know why he's perhaps a little bit stressed out about coming in today. But now we're getting a little bit more of the picture. And so we're starting to get an idea of who Dr. Robbie is.
Well, if you need to talk.
Yeah, I won't, but thanks.
So here we see, through a very simple interaction, what these two characters are like. Dana, there's two sides of her. She is very tough when she needs to be with perhaps patients who are unruly or people who aren't doing their job correctly. But she is also a mother of sorts to the people in the ED. And Dr. Robbie is included in that. She's trying to figure out if he's okay. She knows that he's going to have trouble on this particular day. He's taken off the previous, I think, 4 times the anniversary of Adamson's death. And so she just checking in with him, wants to make sure he's okay. And we also get an idea of what Dr. Robbie is like. He's already pushing her off. He doesn't even want to talk about it. He says he won't need to talk about it. He is someone who hides his feelings. We don't know it yet, but we'll see it reinforced over and over again that that's part of what happens to many, perhaps even most, of doctors who stay in this kind of environment for many years. 2 decades in Dr. Robbie's case. They build a shell around themselves. They get extremely thick skin and don't want to burden other people. They want to hide their emotions because it's so difficult to deal with the stuff that they deal with all the time.
Where's Abbott?
Getting some air?
That look on his face, getting some air. So he knows what's up. We don't yet. But this is like just a little bit of a hint of what's about to happen. It's serious, right? Even though Dana just said he's going out for air.
Hey. You okay in there?
Awesome.
I like to say it goes away, but I had morning sickness for 6 months with my second daughter. Hell, who am I kidding? That still worries me sick.
Thanks.
But it's worth it. You tell anybody yet?
Oh, no. Not until I pass 12 weeks. Not this time.
Nothing but good vibes. But just so you know, Robbie's working today. Today's the day Doc Adamson died. He hasn't worked it in 4 years.
So why is he here?
All I know is he still blames himself for Adamson's death. So if he's a little prickly today, give him a pass, okay?
So huge insight to what Dr. Robbie is like. He cared a lot about Dr. Adamson and blames himself for what happened during the pandemic. We don't know at this point that that's what happened, but we get a small glimpse of what he went through 4 years ago. We also are told just now by Dana that he skipped the last 4 years because he probably couldn't deal with that at that time. He's coming in now on the 5th anniversary of Adamson's death, and it's important, right? We're trying to drop clues as writers to the things that will be important later on. We are setting the stage.
Morning, Jack.
What are you doing here?
I'm working. And you?
Oh, I don't know. Had a guy come in, hit by a drunk driver in a crosswalk, 39-year-old vet. Survived 3 tours without a scratch. I spent the last 2 hours coding it.
That's always a rough way to end the night.
Must have had a reason at one time to keep coming back, but I can't think of it right now.
Because this is the job that keeps on giving. Nightmares, ulcers, suicidal tendencies.
I mean, that's a rough start to any show. Dr. Robbie comes in. He's under stress already. We start getting glimpses of that from both him and Dana in the conversation with Dr. Collins. Then he comes up here to talk to Dr. Abbott, who's out to get a bit of fresh air, right? And the guy is having suicidal ideation thoughts. He's had almost too much. He gets pushed to the edge here, especially because he dealt with a vet, and he is a vet. And this small interaction between Dr. Abbott and Dr. Robbie makes it clear that these two are kind of vets of this war, right? The war against the problems that everyone has and comes into the emergency department for. It's not a war in the conventional sense, of course, but they have to do the same sorts of things that soldiers have to, in that they close off their minds to the pain and misery and grief that people go through and that they are directly related to. They didn't cause it, but they are dealing with it, certainly, and they have to be there for those people as an authority to help them through their grief. And they aren't allowed to show that kind of thing. And it just builds up over time, slowly but surely. And these two guys are dealing with that. And so at this point, I just want to mention one thing. As we open a story, any story, we are making promises in the early going. You'll hear talk about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. We are obviously early in Act 1 at this point of this story. It's not a conventional novel type of story. It's a season in a show, but there are some parallels that we'll talk about with novel writing. And in this case, in our Act 1, we are being shown these two doctors, a little bit of the ED, and the promises that are being made are that this is a tough place to work, that the hospital administration is a bureaucracy that gets in the way of them providing patient care, we think, because Dr. Robbie mentioned his weekly spankings from Gloria. And it's a stressful place to be at over time, and both of these guys have been, and some of the others have as well. But the ED in particular is so tough because it's so random, it's so high pressure, the time constraints are so tight. And so one book I can recommend to think about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 a little bit more is Beginnings, Middles, and Ends by Nancy Kress. And Beginnings obviously is Act 1, Middles is Act 2, Ends is Act 3. And it talks about the promises that we make, how we complicate those promises, expand on them during the middle of the story, and follow through. We keep those promises by the end of the story. And that book talks about that in some detail. So it's kind of a different take on looking at traditional 3-act structure, and very eye-opening, very useful to me to get a story moving and to understand how story works.
I got a pregnant teen coming back today for a mifepristone and a small bowel obstruction waiting on surgery for the last 3 hours. Oh, and unfortunately, the Kraken is still boarding a BH.
Still?
When I first watched this, the things that Dr. Abbott is mentioning, I thought they were just kind of throwaway things that wouldn't really matter, but they affect the coming shift. And so it just goes to show how much the night shift affects the day shift because they're handing things off to them. And they follow through on that with the young woman with the mifepristone who's looking for an abortion, a chemically induced abortion, and the Kraken, who we don't know much about yet, but we'll learn more about later.
Guy's been here for a week waiting on a psych bed.
Yep, he's only getting worse.
So the Kraken's been waiting for, what did you say, a week?
Been here for a week waiting on a psych bed.
Yep, he's only getting worse. He's catching some
Shows just how bad things can get in certain medical centers.
I wrote a note for the family of my dead vet if anyone shows.
Yet one more thing that gets transferred to the day shift and becomes important to Dr. Robbie's day, his shift, as things move on. This letter to the family of the deceased vet that he wasn't able to, unfortunately, save.
Oh, and you got the med students and new interns starting today, so good luck with that.
Lucky me.
Sir, come back here.
No more needles!
Oh,
Sir!
No more needles!
Stop!
sure you want to work today, huh?
They're gonna hurt me!
Sir, I promise nobody's going to hurt you. Sir!
We don't know what Dr. Abbott knows exactly, but he mentions it too. You sure you want to work today?
Dr. Rabinovich? Melissa King. I will be joining you today. I just came from 2 months in the VA.
Hey, welcome to Pitt. This is Dr. Jack Abbott.
Nice to meet you. I can't tell you how excited I am to be.
It's so funny that she's like really excited to be there, right? And if you saw that look on Dr. Abbott's face when she was like, hi.
Jack Abbott?
Nice to meet you. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here today. So.
She's like an alien race to him, right? Because, he's just a different beast after his experiences in the ED at this point, and Dr. Mel is another.
Talk to me at the end of the day.
Ignore him. He had a rough night. And is having an ongoing existential crisis.
Don't worry. You'll get there soon enough.
In 1964. He unfortunately passed in 1976 from a heart attack while we were vacationing in Kissimmee, Florida. It was awful.
Good morning. We're gonna round Dr. Mohan.
Excuse me, Estelle. I'll be right back.
So, you know we track every resident's patient seen per hour.
I was just taking her
It's a
history.
brief backstory about what brought them in, not an autobiography.
I was almost done.
You hadn't even made it to this century.
So this is important. We talked about establishing character, and so we're just meeting Dr. Mohan here, and the writers want to establish her as someone who is caring about her patients to the point that she perhaps takes too much time. The ED is tracked very carefully on how quickly they move patients through. They also can see at a glance by looking at the patient waiting room. And Dr. Mohan is one of the doctors who takes a bit more time than others. And they establish that very economically by having her sit with a patient and having them explain some things that are happening in the 1960s and 1970s. And Dr. Robbie immediately picks up on that. So we sense this bit of frustration and contention between these two doctors. Dr. Mohan, I think, is an R3 or an R4. I forget which. And after R4, I believe you have to choose a specialty to go into.
Patients, they check in for registration here. A nurse eyeballs them, make sure they're not dying. If not, they're moved to one of 2 triage rooms for vitals and a quick chair exam where you can do your labs and your x-rays.
And then they come back to...
Waiting room till bed opens up.
For how long?
8 hours if they're lucky. A lot of times 12.
Is it...
So again, we're getting a little bit of a view. The guy in the blue will be in the back eventually. And here we're getting introduced to Dr. McKay, who is telling her students, the medical students, what the ED is like. We have Dr. Santos, Dr. Whitaker, and Dr. Javadi.
Always this busy?
No. It gets a lot busier. Hey, Mateo.
Good morning, Cass. This is Sherry.
Hi. Sherry, I'm Dr. McKay. I have some student doctors with me today. Do you mind if they observe? Sure.
The whole setup of having PTMC as a teaching hospital is just brilliant because it allows the writers to bring in student doctors so that the senior doctors can explain what's going on. They can challenge the students to take on maybe some lighter cases with guidance from the more seasoned doctors. And it's just a great way to let the viewer in on some of what's going on by couching it as a lesson. If we didn't have this sort of thing, it might be just too much high-level lingo back and forth between more senior doctors, just not enough feedback for the audience. So it's just a great way to share that information with us.
As you can see, We have some new faces with us this morning. Good morning, good morning. Come on over. Starting with second-year resident Dr. Melissa King, fresh from the VA.
Everyone calls me Mel. I'm so happy to be here.
She's so excited. I love her.
Trinity Santos, intern. Victoria Giavatti, MS3.
Dennis Whitaker, MS4.
So I think medical student 3 and medical student 4, so on their third and fourth year as medical students.
Welcome to the Pitt.
We got 2 traumas from the T, 5 minutes out.
Okay, copy that. Actually, this is the most important person that you're going to meet today. This is Dana. She's our charge nurse. She is the ringleader of our circus. Do what she says when she says it.
I really like how well they portray the different levels of people, the different roles, and the hierarchy within the hospital. I'm going to spend another episode on this, but we see a glimpse of it here. We have different levels of doctors. We have different levels of nurses, and they interact with one another in certain ways. There's the administration, there are guards, there are police quite often in the ED. There are the patients themselves, and they fall into different categories too. And so it's very interesting. They pay a lot of attention to the types of people that we meet and what they sort of represent in any hospital.
Hey, Doc.
And we all know Louis Cloverfield. Blood alcohol of 420 at 11 p.m.
I've been cutting back.
How is he still breathing?
That's a lethal dose for you and me. That's happy hour for Louis.
Sobered up, had 2 rounds of lorazepam.
Hold out your hands for me, Louis. Another 2 lorazepam.
On it. And a script for Librium.
It's good to see you, Louis.
It's always a pleasure, Doc.
One of my favorites of the patients, Louis. Such a happy-go-lucky guy, despite the things that he's clearly going through, alcoholism, perhaps homelessness. We don't know just yet at this point, but we do get the sense that they've seen him a number of times before. They call him by his first name. He knows them as well. Very interesting character.
Sounds bilaterally, but we need to protect his...
Apparently, he jumped down to save the lady. When he climbed back up, he slipped, fell back and hit his head.
Thanks.
One of the more interesting aspects of the show is that we catch these glimpses of life outside of the ED. We never leave the hospital. Some very few exceptions when they go to like a park across the street, that type of thing. But they're all still in the vicinity of the hospital. And so they're just really diligent about keeping the experience of watching the show inside of the hospital or in the very close environs, like in the waiting room, the ambulance bay where it comes in and drops off patients. But we get the smallest of glimpses of a story outside of the hospital and the emergency department, like this couple that just came in. They are related. The woman fell onto the tracks of I assume a subway. I don't know if it was a train station or a subway station. She fell and he went down to save her, tried to get back out and fell down and hit his head, as we were just told. But we don't know why. What happened? How did the woman fall down? And how was this man involved? We don't know. So it's a mini mystery that gets solved over the course of a number of scenes and even a number of episodes.
He's probably anticoagulated for AFib. Check his medical record, see if he's on a DOAC. Standby with 4-factor PCC if there's a brain bleed.
What's in the PCC? No.
Clotting factors 2, 7, 9, and 10.
Okay, be right back.
Hit the offend.
Mel. So I love that they don't, as I mentioned in the intro, they don't baby us, the viewer. There are times when they use the construct of being a teaching hospital to pass along more information than they might typically pass in a regular hospital. But when things start getting fast and furious like they are here, they just do not slow down. They just move very quickly, deal with the patient. When there is a bit of time, they do challenge a lot of the students to come up with their own plans, their own ideas for what's going on, how to address the medical situations that these patients are going through, that type of thing. But by and large, most of it just flies by. And I just, as a viewer, I don't care. It doesn't, that's not the story to me. It's interesting. I do like Dr. Mike's videos because he explains some of that stuff. But in terms of enjoying it on a first view or even second view, that doesn't affect me. It just draws me in more, actually.
It didn't touch her.
Did she faint or did she trip off the platform?
Nobody knows. The other guy jumped down, pulled her off the tracks just as the train was rolling in. Isolated injury to the foot.
The train ran over her foot.
Got caught between the platform and the incoming train.
Ma'am?
All right,
Ma'am, what's your name?
Fracture, 2 grams,
Do you speak any English?
So there's just a little bit more info. We get a better picture of what happened at the train station that caused this accident, but it's very unclear at this point. And so part of the lesson that I want you to take from this mini mystery of what happened to this woman and how the man was involved is the writers put obstacles between us, the viewer, and the answer that's going to come. And that's something that we should be looking to do constantly. The two patients come in. One is unconscious, the other one's screaming. We get a little bit of a picture from the paramedics that bring them in. And here, this patient is conscious, but she's screaming, and we are starting to get the sense that maybe she doesn't even understand what Dr. Collins is asking her. Does she even speak the English language or not? And so another impediment to finding out what happened to this woman and the man who tried to save her.
Opponent.
Okay, good.
Got
good.
pretty people.
Subway train degloved your foot with an open fracture dislocation.
Ooh, and I thought my heels were painful.
So here we have yet another level or wrinkle in the types of doctors that we get introduced to. Yolanda Garcia, is a surgeon, and I don't actually know the complete story of how she comes down to the ER and when, but she is the one that's most often assigned to the ED, and they have 2 trauma rooms where they can perform surgeries. And so sometimes she does surgeries, emergency surgeries there. And so this might be a case where that happens.
I'm in.
Good. Well done.
I do sort of like, by the way, but after I've watched like two seasons, like 30 full episodes, I feel like I could do an intubation at this point. Yeah, I know I'm wrong, but I still feel like maybe I could give it a shot.
Do me a favor, swap it with Jesse for me.
Of course.
I like that switch out that Dr. Robbie did right there, because they don't yet know the languages that the woman, the patient, speaks. And Princess speaks 5 or 6 different languages. And so it's just a super subtle way to show what she can do without even saying it. The writers are implying what she can do as we see Dr. Robbie question her coming up.
Swapping out Jesse. Takes 10 minutes for the full effect, and the marking lasts a good 4 hours.
She's next for CT.
You have any idea what language that is?
Well, definitely not Tagalog. Maybe Hindi or Urdu.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get language services.
You speak like 5 languages?
6, but that's not one of them.
6, and I thought Collins was smart.
Oh, it's way too early for you to start being an ass, Langdon.
Open hostility in front of the patient?
She doesn't speak English.
Judgmental and dismissive.
I like the banter between the 2 senior residents.
Vital stable.
Unlike these 2.
Ooh, good for you. Princess made a joke.
Loko-loko ka talaga, no?
And I thank you for that beautiful blessing. Namaste.
Okay, do we have a phone or anything with the relative's name on it?
EMT said the purse got obliterated when the subway ran over it.
Yet another piece of the puzzle that's essentially taken away from us. The purse is gone. We can't speak to these people. So again, obstacles, right? And it just kind of heightens the drama of what's going on here. They're sort of priming us to care more about this mystery. Who is this woman? What language does she speak? What happened to her at the train station? What happened to the guy as well?
Any chance she jumped?
She may have been pushed. Yeah. Could be looking at a possible hate crime.
So there, a bit more of the puzzle. It's conjecture at this point, but it's also coming from a place of experience on the part of the police officer here.
We need to talk about your numbers.
People we've saved.
Metrics.
Our door to balloon times beat federal standards.
I'm talking about press gaining scores. Patient satisfaction.
If they're still alive, they should be satisfied.
Our goal is 36% very satisfied with their care. Your department is at 8.
Well, if you want people to be happier, don't make them wait for 12 hours.
There's a nursing shortage across the country.
The beds are up there. You just don't want to hire the staff you need to care for.
So that's a very interesting and succinct look at the problems that the ED is facing. There are patient satisfaction scores that Gloria cares about, and what Dr. Robbie cares about is making sure that he has the staff required and the ability to get the patients out of the ED and somewhere else. But because of staff shortages and cuts that the hospital is trying to make, they force the ED to board different patients for days at a time. And so, of course, it's going to be a lower satisfaction score. And so it's just a glimpse of an ongoing problem that plagues the hospital in general and the ED and Dr. Robbie, especially because he's the one that's sort of in charge of fixing that, even though Gloria's not ready to give him or the hospital in general the resources to fix it. Talking about beginnings again, this sets up a ongoing season-long struggle between administration and the ED.
Like I said, there's a nursing shortage.
Well, if you paid them a living wage, they'd be lining up to work here.
Our budget can't support that.
Oh, here's a dirty little secret. The hospital saves money keeping patients down here in the pit. It's way cheaper than staffing upstairs.
I have asked you repeatedly to stop referring to the emergency department as the pit. I know today is difficult for you.
Every day is difficult down here.
Boarding is a nationwide problem. Your predecessor, Adamson, sure as hell knew that. Or wasn't that something he taught you?
Fuck. Wow. Really?
Really touches a nerve, right? This is Adamson, remember, his mentor and the man that he cares very much about. We don't know exactly why at this point, but Gloria probably knows that too, and she's calling upon Adamson, and she knows she's going to strike a nerve with him. She's trying to make her point, but Robbie's got his side of the story too.
Yes, really. Other hospitals are managing this crisis much more effectively. So you can either step up your game or you can step aside.
So we get to the point where she's threatening his job, basically. But it also feels like bluster because he's clearly very competent. And who's going to do anything better if they don't have the resources?
Med student down.
It's one of the more memorable moments in season 1. We see Giavatti, take a header on seeing that leg, and them putting it back into position. We talk a lot in writing about show, don't tell. We could have been told that Giavatti was a little bit squeamish here or there from her experiences as a student. But by showing it here, having her faint on seeing this trauma this patient is undergoing, we get what kind of person she is to a degree. Obviously, it's just one aspect of her, but it just by showing us instead of telling, it's just so much more effective.
Dr. Robbie, she took a fall.
I tripped on the gurney. I'm fine.
I love Whitaker's reaction there. Like, nope, she didn't. And hers too. Like, she doesn't want to be perceived as this young, bright-eyed medical student, very gifted intellectually, but unable to handle the stress of the ED.
Why don't you go get a cool drink in the staff lounge?
I'm fine, really, I swear.
Oh, I know, but it's hospital policy. Anytime someone gets a paper cut around here, we have to fill out a workers' comp report. Other way.
I was fine until about 2 weeks.
Again, showing us just how new she is to the ED. And I love this interaction because it shows Robbie's responsibility and how seriously he takes it. He cannot have her in situations where it could affect patients. He has to make sure that she's okay. And by giving her kind of a timeout and a chance to recover, it gives him a chance to sort of evaluate her a little bit as well and see what he wants to do with her.
Nice job.
Do you think he'll wake up?
Maybe. Maybe not.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Oh, has anyone notified the family? I could try.
Poor Mel. She's always like trying to reach out to people, and people are just so, I don't think they don't not care. They're just so busy that it's just difficult for them to spend any extra time with their coworkers. And Mel wants to.
He's a little young for mine.
Exactly right. What's the differential, Dr. Collins?
Drug overdose, electrolytes, on QT, Brugada syndrome, WPW.
How you doing there, Otis?
Okay. What happened?
VTech again?
200 joules.
Charged and clear.
Back in sinus. Otis? Otis?
Oh, groaning's good. 5 of nasal O2 CBC, CMP, troponin, and D-dimer. What are you doing?
1 gram calcium glutamate, IV push.
We don't have the labs back.
Look at the monitor. Wide QRS and peak T waves, hyperkalemia.
How do you get that?
Intense exercise caused muscle breakdown, rhabdomyolysis, knocked out his kidneys. Now he's not clearing potassium. I bet it's over 7.5.
Wait 2 minutes for the ice.
If you rescue him, we might not get him back.
It's like calcemia. You could kill him. Wait.
It's my ass, not yours.
I love that whole scene because it shows we've seen Dr. Robbie interacting with different doctors some of the patients. He's trying to organize things early on, but we have not yet seen his brilliance. And the writers had to devise ways to show just how experienced he is. He's been in this department for 20 plus years, and he's learned under some of the best doctors around, including Adamson and others. And he brings that to this job every day, and that's why he's so valued. And so we as viewers, we need to be shown that so we understand the position that Robbie holds. He is not just an administrator. He's an extremely gifted doctor who also has some emotional issues that he's dealing with today. What this is sort of implying, again, going back to the promises that are being made, we are likely going to see his continued brilliance over the course of the season. Also, his continued attitude towards how he wants his ED to be run and how the doctors under him perform within it. And also, thirdly, how the emotional impact of working on today of all days, when Adamson, the anniversary of his death, how that's going to affect him. How will that affect his normally very high level of performance after coming in on a day that he probably should have stayed home, talking with his good friend, Dr. Abbott, who was having suicidal thoughts right when he came in, etc.
Did we figure out what she's speaking?
Last interpreter thought she might be from Pakistan.
There are 77 languages in Pakistan.
Okay, well, I will buy lunch for whoever figures it out. Good luck. If you need me, I'll be saving lives.
I like that bit of interaction from Langdon. We're being shown a man who is high performing, but also high strung. And he also likes a challenge. He doesn't like easy cases. He's always pushing himself to take on the tougher cases because we get the idea it's kind of a thrill for him to do that. And we wonder how that's going to affect him this season as well.
I got $50 that she doesn't last through this shift. Come on. Put your money where your mouth is.
No, I didn't say anything, okay? I sure as hell don't have $50. I'll be this lady's age by the time I pay off my student loans. Not that you...
Hey, you want to sell a kidney? I could get you $30K as soon as this weekend. That's just between you and me. Think about it.
I love the dynamic between Whitaker and Santos. They're showing her, obviously, as someone who's a wisecracker. She doesn't take things super seriously, although you get the sense that she's professional underneath that exterior. And Whitaker, on the other hand, is like this wholesome, white bread guy from Nebraska, right? And he's kind of a goody two-shoes as compared to Santos, who's more of a trickster, joker kind of figure.
You really need to hydrate like crazy before and after a triathlon.
Trust me, I won't let this happen again.
Good. Be kind to yourself, okay?
That's one of my favorite moments from this episode. Dr. McKay is shown as a very empathetic doctor and also very sharp at sort of sussing out what's going on with patients as well, because the story the patients give isn't always the real story, right? They are sometimes embarrassed and they want to hide their way of life or what happened or the cause of things, what have you. And McKay, we learn, has had a somewhat tough life up to this point. We'll see more of that, evidence of that in the future. But here she is shown as caring, for this patient. And, from the outside looking in, it feels like it could be very easy for doctors and nurses to become emotionally calloused to the plight of their patients and not care as much as maybe they should, or certainly not as much as they did in the beginning. But McKay seems like someone who is always going to be this way. That's one of the things that makes her who she is. She is caring and empathetic, and that's not going to change.
Stop. Call it. Nursing home just faxed us a DNR.
Are you kidding?
Power out the defibrillator and the
Complete
Lucas.
waste of time and money. Who the hell works at that place?
A nurse taking care of 60 patients who couldn't find the form.
One of the more interesting things about the show is like how much interconnects to our healthcare system. They're talking and have been talking for the last few minutes about the retirement homes, retirement communities where the staff will do bed checks and you can set your watch to people coming in after they've been found with either troubles or perhaps deceased overnight. And so in this case, we're getting a small glimpse into what the retirement life is like and what that staff goes through and what that means in turn for something like an emergency department.
Okay, let's move her to the viewing room and notify the family.
Yeah.
One of the things we do here is to take a moment of silence when we lose a patient. To respect their humanity and also to remember that this was somebody's child or sibling or parent, friend.
This is actually a very touching moment. We're getting some insight as to how Robbie likes to run his shifts, his crew. He cares enough to take this moment, and he's passing it on to the other staff members, and they seem to buy into it. But we get the shot of Langdon, who is, again, he's being painted as a high-strung individual, and this is one step above. He cannot wait to get out of this room, right? He hardly knows what to do with himself when he should be reflecting on this person's humanity that has just passed. And so it's a clue as to what's going on with Langdon. We don't know just yet, but we kind of get the sense that something is off about him.
I'm so sorry.
Whitaker, the bumbling farmhand from Nebraska, being thrust into the ED, and he's just being shown over and over again as someone who's new to this world.
Maybe leave it on vibrate while you're working?
I love Dana's reactions, by the way. She's seen this over and over again, and there's different ways that new med students and interns come in and are just not prepared, not used to this kind of environment that they live in daily.
Really, bitch. I just wanted to apologize for any trouble my clumsiness might have caused. I feel ridiculous.
Oh, I can't tell how many times I've hit my head on an overhead lamp. Twice I needed to get staples. Why don't you go work with Dr. McKay in triage? That would help both of us.
Oh, I don't need special treatment.
Good, because I don't give it.
Look, I know I might look too young, but I studied my ass off to get here. Probably harder than the others. I earned this.
Okay, look, I respect your dedication and your determination, but while you're here, you're my responsibility. And when one of my responsibilities takes a header... Wow! Abbott called for a surgical consult on the SBO 3 hours ago. You're very lucky they didn't perf.
I'm here to see my daughter.
I'm sorry, is that a patient?
You're talking to her. Am I interrupting?
No. No, we're done. We're good. Come find me when you're ready to present your next case.
So we've learned a little bit about Javati so far, but we learn even more now. A, she's obviously very gifted, very smart, went through college early and got through it. She put in the work. But she's also young, she is inexperienced, and that shows. But she's fearful that people are going to focus on that. She has a lot of pressure on her. Her mother works at the hospital. She's pretty high up, I think, in the surgical ranks. And that just puts even more pressure on Javati to prove that she deserves this, that she didn't get it because her mother works in the hospital, that she can make her own way through the medical system and prove that she's ready to work in this emergency department without hand-holding.
So, how's your first day going?
It's great. Yeah, really great.
Hey, Crash. They're doing a dialysis catheter insertion in North Warren if you want to check it out.
Thanks.
Did she say crash?
No. No, it's not crash. She said crush, so I was crushing it.
Poor Javati. She had, she fainted, and now she's going to have to deal with that as well on top of everything else. And now she's got Santos calling her crash and right in front of her mother. So yeah, big uphill battle for her today on her first day.
Hey, what's your take on dogs?
In what context?
For kids.
Kids and puppies go together like fish and chips. Man's best friend, you know?
Well, you don't have a dog.
I don't have a best friend.
What am I?
You're my best resident, big difference.
Yeah, but we're still friends.
Not if this conversation goes on, Miss Mugger.
This is a good character moment between Langdon and Robbie. He is going to be painted as kind of the chosen one, and so we have to establish some relationship between these two. But note as well that Robbie keeps this very professional. He puts up walls between himself and his patients, and also himself and his staff. He doesn't like to play favorites. He just is wanting to have a highly efficient emergency department and to save as many patients as possible. That's kind of his overriding goal in his professional life.
No, BG85. CBC,
So what happens? The gas should remain that branch. Classics on the way.
Another very economical way to show the care that Robbie has for Collins, the worry that he has over her, and Collins clearly not wanting people to worry about her, especially Dr. Robbie. No words being spoken, right? Those are just glances between those two characters. Just super efficient storytelling.
No anesthesia or?
Oh, stop before I hit the nail bed. I hope. Hey, eyes down here. Watch and learn.
So Whitaker hurt his finger transferring a patient from the gurney to the bed. Another sign of his inexperience. And Santos, they're constantly reinforcing the notion of experience, levels of experience, and again, the hierarchy within the hospital. She is not a med student anymore. She's an R1. So if she is now a full-fledged doctor, and Whitaker, I think it was an MS4. So he's close to becoming a resident.
Suit yourself, Huckleberry. I'm gonna take the splitting headache. Maybe I'll catch a subarachnoid hemorrhage or something cool.
Hey, why do you keep calling me that? Huckleberry?
It's a term of endearment.
It sounds like sarcasm.
You think?
Bordering on harassment.
Where are you from?
Broken Bow, Nebraska.
Jesus, where the hell is that?
It's about 3.5 hours west of Omaha.
Oh yeah, just a little south of nowhere. What the hell do you do there?
My parents have a farm, so.
You're a farm boy?
Yeah, I guess.
I rest my case, Huckleberry.
The exchange is funny, but it actually shows Santos as someone who quickly picks up on things. She's a good judge of people, as are most of the folks in the ED. They have to learn that kind of thing. And the people who don't just don't make it that far, right? And so they're able to sort of peg people, figure out who they are pretty quickly. And it's just funny that they interact in this way. She is kind of the dominant one. He is clearly not as experienced. He's under the gun a bit. And so it's like a hazing ritual from the residents, the younger residents, probably towards the med students, who the residents just were. They just got past that and became doctors, and so they're kind of bringing them up in a tough love sort of manner.
I'm so sorry, ma'am. We don't understand you. Me? I'm Dr. Heather Collins. I'm from here, Portland, Oregon. You. Where are you from? China? India? I can't tell where you're pointing. Tajikistan? Nepal. You're from Nepal. Nepali.
So we talked about the mystery that was introduced when the man who saved her from the fall and her having that accident with the train, they couldn't speak to either of them, right? And then she was awake but screaming, so they couldn't really talk to her much at all. Then they found out that she couldn't speak English, and they didn't even know what language she speaks. So just barrier after barrier to getting to the answers that we're searching for. So the lesson here is, of course, as a writer, we want to place those obstacles between the viewer or the reader and the payoff. The payoff was going to be, who is this person? Where is she from? What was going on that train station with her? And how did the man get involved? Was there a third person that was involved? Or was he the other guy that came in, the person who did a hate crime of some sort? We don't know yet. That's what we're trying to get to. That's the mystery that was posed when they came in. And so we've come one step forward, but we still can't speak her language and she can't speak English. And so there's still one more step that has to happen at minimum.
Can I actually ask you a personal question? I'm 20, and I've earned the right to be here. Oh, yeah, I don't doubt that for a minute. I was actually wondering if Dr. Eileen Shamsi from surgery is a friend or relative of yours. I saw you talking to her in the hall. And yeah, she's my mother.
Shivati's being really defensive. And we get it now. We've been reinforced this notion of her being young, out to prove herself, having fought her way here against people's expectations of someone so young. And the show just keeps reinforcing that. It's just a really good character development, just really consistent, right, about her in particular, everybody actually, but she's a great example of that.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool.
And since we're talking about beginnings and the promises that we're making for the course of this story, let's call it. We don't have a direct parallel between this particular show and most novels. There's not something that the characters are like fighting for. They're not trying to win the day against some opposing force. Instead, they're really just trying to kind of survive what the emergency department, what the patients, what the situation in the world in Pittsburgh is going to throw at them this particular day. But in the case of Javati, what we're being shown is someone who is under the gun, out to prove herself. She has to prove herself. She has to show that she belongs. That's what she wants. And so that's what we expect will happen. Things will keep coming at her to kind of challenge her role, her place in life as someone who is young and inexperienced.
I just need to see someone, okay? Not her. Isn't chest pain an emergency?
It looks here like you got an EKG 5 minutes after arrival, so it's not a heart attack.
Yeah, but I'm supposed to get a chest x-ray and blood tests.
And you are next in line for lab tech. Okay, so listen for your name. Excuse me.
So as I mentioned, they go out to the waiting room quite a bit over the course of the episodes leading up to something fairly big later on. We are told over and over again that there are a bunch of patients waiting. Robbie uses that against Dr. Mohan as a way to spur her to move faster. There are plenty of other examples. If we didn't see the waiting room now and again, some of that would fall flat. One of the reasons this is shown is to build the stress, to show the stress, to sort of prove it to the viewer that their worry about how many patients they have already this early in the morning is not unfounded, and that pressure is just going to continue to build. The promise being made here in the early going is that not only is it busy already at 7:45 or what have you, it's just going to keep getting worse, and that's going to become a pressure cooker for this ED.
I found her on the floor in the bathroom. She can't stop puking.
What's her name?
Teresa, she's my mom.
Hey, Teresa? Teresa, are you taking any medication?
No.
Any previous stomach problems?
No.
When did the vomiting begin?
Listen.
This is some great sleight of hand on the part of the writers. The mother is being brought in to be looked at for her vomiting, but in fact, the mother wants David to be seen to in some manner. She is very worried about him, and we'll see why, but this is a great way to set up a twist that's going to come later on with these two particular people as mother and son.
Tell me about this belly pain.
It started about here. Woke me up at like 2 a.m.
Well, the exam is pretty benign. I'm gonna test for gallstones. If there is a stone and you eat fatty food, there can be pain when the gallbladder contracts. Oh, bingo. 1 stone, there it is.
One of the things that the show does really well is setting us up for dramatic moments. A regular ED is dealing with all kinds of symptoms all the time, and you can have misdiagnoses, and we don't know it yet, but that's what just happened on Whitaker's part. I won't cover what happens later on. We'll cover that in a future episode. I just want to call out that the show is constantly performing misdirection in terms of like the severity of the cases, the root causes of the cases, the complications that can happen because of them, and that sets us up to constantly be on edge. It's one of the ways that they create tension. We might have some benign case that comes in. We're being set up in this case where we haven't really seen a lot of that misdirection at this point, but as the episodes go on, you become more and more worried for every single patient that comes in, like what could go wrong? And some of them absolutely do get out of the ED with no problems. They have very, simple cases, and they have to have that. That would be unrealistic if they didn't. But some percentage of them, some few of the cases will become quite serious quite soon, unexpectedly, because they missed something here or there. And so this is just one example, but it's important to do in a show like this where you want to create that kind of underlying tension with every patient that comes into the ED.
You want an EKG?
For?
Heart attacks can present as upper abdominal pain.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
There's a good case where Whitaker is inexperienced. The nurses know so much. Generally, the doctors are told to trust them. They just have so much experience. Listen to them.
I need a fresh set of eyes.
On what?
54-year-old woman brought in with intractable vomiting by her 18-year-old son. I'm getting a weird vibe.
How so?
I don't know, maybe she was given something, some sort of elder abuse. It's just a strange dynamic I can't quite figure out. And you're really good at sussing out that sort of thing.
So is McKay. Like, she picked up on it already, right? David came in and McKay was telling both the mother and him about the symptoms and what they could be, her elevated levels. Was it potassium? And he didn't seem to care very much. He felt put out by having to bring her to the hospital, that sort of thing. And that's what McKay is picking up on here. And there is a strange dynamic going on. The mother's extremely worried, but she hasn't confessed what she's worried about just yet. And so McKay's picking up on that.
Any chance he could have gotten into some bath beads or laundry pods?
No, and there's no such thing in our house.
What about gummies?
No, we're very strict about candy. Right?
That was a great bit of camera work there. The son got into some gummies, some THC gummies. But in that moment, when he took his hand away, the show is so good about just those little moments that say a lot. He's pulling away from her in his embarrassment, but it also just shows a physical separation between the two and it implies growing tension between these two characters, husband and wife, because of what the husband allowed to happen.
Teresa. David, this is my attending, Dr. Rabinovich.
Hi, Dr. Robbie. We need to do a pelvic exam. And David, I don't think you want to be in here for that.
Definitely not.
Can you have Nurse Perla come join me, please?
You want a coffee or a soda or something?
I love all the little tricks that they have to talk to certain patients by themselves, which can be important. If they really wanted to get to the heart of the matter of something that's driving their medical condition, they sometimes have to speak to them alone, away from someone else who might be influencing them. And in this case, they're worried about elder abuse. So they want to get the mother alone so that she can at least tell them something about what's going on at home.
Why do I need a pelvic exam?
You don't. Your son seems like a nice kid. He's clearly worried about you. But your exam and your labs are not matching any of the usual diagnoses, so I'm not really sure what's going on.
I'm not here for me. My son has some problems. He needs professional help.
Okay, what kind of problems? Drugs, alcohol?
I found some of his writing. It was lists of girls he wanted to hurt.
So there, we get hit with the bomb. That's why she did what she did. She forced herself to vomit with Ipecac and came into the hospital so that she could speak to somebody about David and his problems. There aren't that many threads that go through the entire course of the series, but this is one of them. So I'm going to follow this in later episodes, and we'll talk about beginnings, middles, and ends in terms of subplots, not the entire series, but parts of it. And talk about how to start those, how to develop them, and how to finish them off. And we'll talk about that in terms of smaller subplots, little medical mysteries that happen over the course of a single episode, and those that take longer over the course of multiple episodes or the entire season. I love that moment too. There's so much nonverbal communication, and it implies so much. There's an understanding between hospital staff, and especially between Robbie and Dana, because they have so much history about things that are perhaps not so serious and that you can interrupt, and things that you absolutely cannot interrupt. And this is one of the latter cases where Robbie's really worried and he needs to take extra time with this mother to figure out what's going on.
I got a situation. 18-year-old kid brings in his dehydrated mom. Dad died during the pandemic. Mom's vomiting is self-induced for the sole purpose of getting him here after she finds his death list for classmates.
Okay. What does she want us to do?
Help him, protect him.
I do love that they spend so much time too on the social aspects of what's happening in the ER, and they have Kiara, the social worker. She comes into a lot of cases. It just shows the human aspect of the ED and all the cases that they're dealing with, and how much can be driving why people are ending up in the hospital in the first place. It's not something that we typically associate with the emergency department, and so I'm glad that they included Kiara and bring her into so many cases.
How are you doing?
Me? I'm good. I'm always good. You know that.
Do I? Does anybody?
I'm an open book.
Not even close. You do know you can always come talk to me, right?
Another good moment. Robbie just has so many walls. He's not willing to talk to anybody about any of his personal feelings. He is a pressure cooker at this point. And so part of the question of this season becomes, when does it blow?
A lot of people have thoughts that can disturb them. If you've had any, it's okay to talk about.
What does that have to do with my mom? Is she gonna be okay?
Yeah, she's gonna be fine. She's probably got a stomach virus, maybe food poisoning. I think she's more worried about you.
She always worries about me.
Does she have a reason to?
No. It's almost 8. I gotta go.
Sure you wouldn't prefer to wait with your mom?
I'm late for school. She can just call me when she's ready.
It would actually be kind of helpful to talk to you some more. Hey, David? David. Hey, just give me 5 minutes. Leave me alone. Hey, David!
Robbie! Got a college kid, respiratory arrest, coming in hot.
So that was a great escalation of this thread. What we know about David at this point is that he's lost his father. He has only his mother in his family besides. He's not dealing with it well. His emotions are driving him. His anger is driving him to the point that he's making these lists of people that he wants to eliminate. At least he's fantasizing about that in some way. We don't know where this thread is going at this point, but this is a great way to amp up the interest on the part of the watcher in terms of what he's going to do, what the hospital will do, Dr. Robbie, others will do, what the mother will do, and how that's all going to figure into this day, this shift. You know, how is David going to figure into that? So then we get hit with this. He was just in a very high stress moment with David. I don't think that's related directly to what's going on with him now, but his blood is pumping. And then he comes back into the ED and he's having a troubled moment. He's having a tough time dealing with the memories of what happened during COVID. And this is the first flashback that we get about what he actually went through during COVID, what the health system went through as well, but certainly Dr. Robbie and his mentor, Adamson, Dr. Adamson.
Robbie, we need to intubate here.
Dr. Adamson just went down with a pulse ox of 65.
End of episode. So Dana's concern over him coming in on this particular day is suddenly much more clear than it was moments ago. We got hints all the way through the first episode that it was affecting him, but that he maybe could handle it. But people were worried, and they were worried for a reason. He didn't come in the last 4 years on this particular day, the anniversary of Adamson's death, but he did today for some reason. And maybe he thought he was ready, but they're obviously worried about him. And they know his character, right? That's part of the storytelling that's going on, is their worry for him indicates how close they are, indicates how well they're able to read him, indicates his character. They are not nervous for no reason. They know him and they know his tendencies, right? And so all of it built up to this moment right at the very end. And that just punches us, right? Where we get it now, at least to a degree. We not only understand why Dana and others were so worried, we see that it's justified at this point. Again, going back to, and I'm going to leave this alone as we move into other episodes, but the promises that we were making right in those first couple of scenes with Dana and then on the roof with Dr. Abbott, that this is a really hellacious place to work, right? And this day of all days is going to be rough. That was the promise that was being made early on, and it's being furthered by showing us more of what happened 5 years ago to Adamson and Dr. Robbie and the staff. So that's it for the first episode. Great introduction to this world of the Pitt and this emergency department, the characters, the different staff, the patients, the mysteries that they're going through, et cetera, et cetera. In upcoming episodes, I'm going to be focusing and pulling in, I think, multiple episodes, maybe 2 or 3 at a time. What What I want to focus on is the cast and how you can develop a cast of your own that is set up for tension by its very design. We'll also talk about how to, as I mentioned, setting up subplots, different threads that you're going to introduce to the reader or the viewer, complicate, and then close out. I think I'll also dedicate one episode to things like mystery, action, suspense, some basic tools of storytelling and how they're used in the Pit, and how you might apply them to your own writing. And then towards the end of the season, there is a mass shooting event. So I'm going to take those couple of episodes, 2 or 3 episodes, to talk about big events that you build towards in your writing. How you foreshadow them, how you give hint that they're coming, how the mood changes leading up to it and going into it and then through it as well, and how to close those out too. And how that affects the story once they're done. And I think we'll wrap up with, we talked about beginnings and middles. I'll talk about middles at some point, how that complicates the promises that were made in the beginning. And then I'll spend the last couple of episodes, I think 2 episodes, on ends, how we close out a story. So I hope you'll stick around. I hope you learned a bit about writing in that breakdown/reaction. I'll have more in this series soon. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about writing, check out my series of videos on mastering fiction. I'll have a link up above here. I have another series on mastering Scrivener, that tool that I mentioned, for those who are curious to get into writing a little bit more deeply and need something to help organize themselves. And Scrivener, by the way, is a tool for writers of all stripes, including novelists, screenwriters, playwrights, nonfiction, and more. I'm also developing a book on writing, and I'll be running a Kickstarter soon. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to get updates for that project. I hope to see you in the next one as we break down more of the Pit. Until then, dream big, stay positive, and keep writing. Peace, everyone.